Hey students, this is your Nandini ma'am. Today we are going to start the reading of Module 2, Organization of Living Things. So let's get started. Organization of cells. It is amazing that the many living things on Earth are so very different in their structure and appearance. They may be composed of only one cell, which is unicellular, a group of cells existing together, colonial, or many cells, each with a specific function contributing to the efficient functioning of the organism, multicellular. If you were to look past the obvious differences between these types of organisms, you would realize that at a cellular level, there are many similarities. Each cell needs to obtain the required nutrients, carry out metabolic functioning, and successfully dispose of waste. 4.1 Comparing different types of organisms. Organisms can exist as a single cells working together, or as an organism made up of many cells. Similarities between each of these types of organisms include the following. They are all composed of cells. These cells all possess cell membranes, cytosol, ribosomes, and some sort of genetic material. Differences occur in the number of cells present in the organism, the types of cells, and the organization of the cells. Unicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms contain only one cell, which can be either prokaryotic or eukaryotic, for example, paramecium and bacteria. In all unicellular organisms, a single cell is responsible for all of its own life processes. Prokaryotes are unicellular organisms composed of one prokaryotic cell. Prokaryotes have been on Earth for 3.5 to 4 billion years. The conditions of living on Earth have dramatically changed since then, but prokaryotes have evolved to remain the most widespread group of organisms on Earth. The lack of organelles and simple structure in prokaryotes does, however, limit the number of metabolic reactions that can occur at any particular time. Unicellular eukaryotic organisms can carry out all the necessary life processes in a more efficient manner than the prokaryotes by means of specialized organelles. Unlike multicellular organisms, all unicellular organisms are always directly exposed to the external environment. Their microscopic size means that they have a high surface area to volume ratio. This enables all required substances to move across the cell membrane into all areas of the cell for its functioning. Waste can also be efficiently removed from all parts of the cell by movement through the cell membrane. Colonial organisms. Colonial organisms are made up of a group of identical single-celled organisms collectively called a colony. All individuals in the colony are capable of carrying out each function necessary for life and therefore could be classed as single-celled organisms. Some colonial organisms contain cells that have specialized functions that are coordinated with other cells in the colony. This contributes to more efficient functioning of all members of that colony. Examples of colonial organisms are volvox, coral, and jellyfish. Volvox, a colony of algal cells, was first observed by Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He ground his own lenses and made his own microscopes through which he observed many microscopic organisms from a variety of sources, including pond water. His descriptions at the time were so precise that modern microbiologists can now identify many of the microorganisms he saw. A volvox colony is a hollow sphere made up of 500 to 60,000 algae cells, each with two flagella and connected by strands of cytoplasm. This allows them to swim in a coordinated fashion. Each colony is only one cell thick. Each cell in the colony has a red eye spot that can detect light. The cells on one end of the colonial sphere have more developed eye spots, and this allows the volvox colony to swim towards the light. Every cell in the colony contains chloroplast, although some of the colonies may obtain what they need by absorption of nutrients from their environment. Even though Volvox exhibits some specialization, it lacks tissues and organs and is therefore classed as a unicellular colony rather than a multicellular organism. Eukaryotic dinoflagellates are another example of a colonial organism. Each possess an ovoid or spherical cell body with a single collared flagellum. These can exist as free living unicellular organisms or grouped together in colonies. Research involving the study of the genetic makeup of these support their role as an evolutionary link between the unicellular and multicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms are made up of many different types of cells. Similar cells are grouped together and perform specialized functions that combine together for the efficient functioning of the organism. These specialized cells in multicellular organisms cannot live independently of each other, unlike those of unicellular and colonial organisms. The processes of obtaining nutrients and getting rid of waste in unicellular and colonial organisms rely on diffusion and are less successful and efficient than those in multicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms are larger in overall size, and so their total surface area to volume ratio is smaller. As a result, passive transport is insufficient to address their needs. This problem is overcome by the functional organization of multicellular organisms. Large organisms are made up of numerous small cells so that each cell has its own large surface area to volume ratio. This leads to an increase in the efficiency of diffusion and osmosis in individual cells. Multicellular organisms are not simply thousands of similar cells lumped together. Cells have become organized into groups called tissues. For example, blood tissue and skin tissue in humans, photosynthetic tissue and epidermal tissue in plants. Some small multicellular organisms still rely on diffusion and osmosis for nutrient and gas exchange between their cells and the surroundings. But large multicellular organisms have their tissues further organized into organs and systems, such as those which have developed for the efficient uptake of nutrients and gases. In multicellular organisms, a division of labor occurs. Different cell types are structurally suited to carry out different functions. This increases their effectiveness in carrying out their functions. Some cells are involved in obtaining nutrients, whereas other tissues function in movement, growth, and excreting. Young cells, called embryonic cells, are similar to each other in structure and in early life. Their only function is to divide and give rise to new cells. Embryonic cells require protection and nutrients to grow, and it is only once they begin to mature that they develop suitable structural changes that allow them to carry out specialized functions. Some cells fight infection, others store nutrients, some process and transmit information, some secrete substances like hormones, and others have a protective function. Investigation 4.1. A practical investigation to compare the cells of unicellular, colonial, and multicellular organisms. Unicellular, colonial, and multicellular organisms differ in their cell number, cell functions, and cell specialization. In this practical investigation, you will observe the features of these different types of cells. Aim to observe and compare the features of different types of cells from unicellular, colonial, and multicellular organisms. Materials: light microscope, mini grid, chopping board, knife or scalpel, forceps, dissecting needle, microscope slides, cover slips, pipettes, prepared or fresh specimens of unicellular eukaryotes, a colonial organism, plant cells, animal cells, labeled diagram of a bacterial cell. Risk assessment: knife or scalpel. Sharp edges can cause cuts. Use the knife or scalpel with care. Hold it by the handle and keep your fingers away from the sharp edge of the blade. Microscope slides or cover slips. Sharp edges can cause injury if broken. Handle with care. Push gently on the cover slip. Always focus by moving the objective lens away from the slide. Method: observe one specimen from each of the categories provided and draw a label diagram Include the magnification used. Estimate the size of the cell observed. Record any other relevant information about the cells you observed. Results. On your diagrams of the cells you observe, label them as one of the following types of the cell: unicellular prokaryote, unicellular eukaryote, colonial organism, or multicellular organism. Copy and complete table 4.1 to summarize the type of cell, the size of the cell, and any other relevant features of each cell. Discussion. Outline the similarities of the cells studied. Describe the differences between each of the cell types. Compare the complexity of the cells of unicellular organisms with the cells from the multicellular organisms. Conclusion. Write a brief summary statement that addresses the aim and summarizes the results. Key concepts. Unicellular organisms are made up of one cell that has to carry out all metabolic processes. This cell could be either prokaryotic or eukaryotic. Prokaryotic cells have no membrane-bound nucleus or organelles. Their simple structure limits the number of reactions they can carry out. Eukaryotic cells possess a membrane-bound nucleus and organelles, increasing the efficiency of metabolic reactions. Cells of unicellular organisms have a high surface area volume ratio, which allows efficient movement of substances into and out of the cell. Colonial organisms are thought to be the evolutionary link between unicellular and multicellular organisms. Colonial organisms are composed of individual cells living together in a colony. All cells in the colony are capable of carrying out all of the metabolic functions necessary for life. However, simple, specialized cells can be present in the colony to improve the efficiency of functioning of the organism. Two examples of colonial organisms are volvox and cyanoflagellates. Multicellular organisms are composed of many different types of specialized cells. Similar specialized cells are grouped together and perform specific functions that combine for the efficient functioning of the organism. Individual cells in multicellular organisms cannot live independently of each other. So this was section 4.1.